I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Danson-Bennett MBE, who I have had the absolute great privilege of playing hockey with a long, long time ago. We've just sort of introduced ourselves like we'd never walked out of the changing room, but I think I haven't seen you for probably 10, 12 years or something. Between us, we've had 6 kids, which is a slightly strange concept. But yeah, it's like I haven't seen you, it's been moments. So Alex has obviously had an incredible career as a professional hockey player, and if anyone was watching that Rio Olympics, as I was in my room at home, it was an incredible moment for the sport, for you guys as a team, and I think for any girl at home in the UK watching. So she's obviously an incredibly decorated athlete, but I also think what's perhaps more relevant and poignant for us today, we've talked a lot about like our vision and setting our goals and overcoming challenges and bumps in the road, which inevitably in all of our different lives and careers there will be. And Alex, I took early retirement eventually, didn't you, after a kind of a really big bump in the road, which I'd love Alex to share a bit of her story about today. So Alex, I think you retired in 2020 after a traumatic brain injury, and I think I'd love, if you're comfortable, just talking a little bit about that journey from that emphatic gold in Rio and then life after that, and how you kind of, what you learned from that experience.
Yeah, thanks Vicky. Can you all hear me okay? Yes, okay, thank you very much Vicky. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to spend some time with you today. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. If I can just go back to something you said actually about the Rio Games. You mentioned about young girls watching. I think for me, what Rio did for us in terms of a platform was when I was at school, which is terrifyingly further away now than it used to be, there wasn't an opportunity for girls to really watch anything. There was no female elite sports team that I knew of. I was always incredibly sporty. That was my avenue, and my passion was always to be a PE teacher because that was the only thing I could see. And actually I genuinely am grateful to be here today because, again, there's not many spaces where women can actually genuinely support women and feel comfortable to have conversations and challenge and support and make you feel normal, dare I say it. We're all in the same space going through all these different challenges, and yeah, Rio gave us that incredible opportunity to do these type of things. And after those games, I'd played in the team for many years. I'd been in the team for, I think at that point, about 15 years, and I had the great privilege of becoming the captain. And it was incredible. It came with lots of different highs and lows. But as Vicky said, 2 years later, we had a World Cup, and it was in London. And I said, when my career started, if my parents came, I was delighted. And suddenly we had a stadium with 15,000 people. It was completely full. It was bright, it was vibrant. It was only something I could only dream of. But we didn't finish where we wanted to. And after that tournament, we had a couple of weeks off. And I went on holiday to Kenya with my boyfriend at the time, my now husband. And I had an accident. I fell back, I hit my head, and as Vicky said, it kind of resulted in a mild traumatic brain injury. It was quite innocuous. I wasn't left unconscious, but over a period of 6 weeks, I became worse and worse. I couldn't tolerate any noise, any sound. I couldn't hold a conversation, walk unaided. And at 6 weeks, it was the first time I kind of left a dark room and I went into the hockey environment. I started having seizures and being violently sick. And I was rushed up to Birmingham Neurological Unit, where they think I had a small brain in the back of my head, which led to all of these complications. I remember the neurologist coming in and saying to me, you've got a mild, at the time they diagnosed it as a mild traumatic brain injury. It was upgraded, for want of a better word, to a traumatic brain injury a couple of years later. But she said to me, this will take you, weeks or months to recover. And I just looked at her and was like, I'll be back playing in like 2 weeks, no problem. And I'm sure we'll discuss more about kind of the next few years of my life, but it simply didn't get better. I'm on year 7 and I'm like a different human to 3 years ago. But I think where sport then became so valuable to me was actually after my career finished, which I never believed it would. It's the values that sport can instill in us. It's whether it's goal setting on a macro level or a micro, whether it's your health, whether it's your family, whether it's your business planning. For me, sport became my saviour in terms of how I could recover, even when I was told I wouldn't. And as I said, 7 years on, I now live a fully functional life, a life I was told I would not live. And I look back so like, proudly and fondly on my career, but actually on what it gave me past my playing days, far more though than it did when I actually played.
Thank you for sharing that so honestly. I can't even imagine knowing how you are and your kind of strive for success, but you would do anything, Alex would generally do anything on and off the pitch for the team to win, or for all of us to do the best we can. So for you to be put in that position, like out of your control, I can only imagine was incredibly challenging. So how did you, I suppose, take that challenge and reset your goals? Because I guess you were still in the kind of professional camp,
Yep.
You were trying to recover. I'm sure, still had the goal of all of those goals you already had. So how did you mentally reframe your goals during that time?
Yeah, great question. So I think for me it was two things. It was resetting my expectations. So before I hit my head, I was leading my team out in front of thousands of people, leading a strong group of incredible individuals, and I hit my head and I had the ability to I just couldn't function. And I mean day in, day out, weeks, months. It was 2.5 years before I got back into centre, which is where we trained, where I then announced my retirement. 2.5 years of basically being at home. The best way, and apologies if this is an unpleasant analogy, but COVID for me felt like my head injury, the closed down nature of it. I was completely isolated, but I was also feeling incredibly unwell. So over a period of time, it was learning to reset my expectations. And I think, again, that's really valuable when we go through different phases of life. You know, I'm now a young mum and I can't expect to exercise in the same way that I used to when I wasn't. So just reframing how I think about something manages my expectations and then allows me to put a plan in. So little things like, and I honestly wanted to thump him every night when he said this, but being poorly for so long did result in me feeling like having low mood, feeling down. Like I never wanted to say I was depressed. I was down because I couldn't do anything. And my husband, every single night before I go to bed, I'd be desperately upset and I'd be like, am I ever going to be able to do anything again? He'd be like, say it. And I'd be like, no, like, say it. And I said, I am getting better. I will get better. I'm going to make a full recovery. And the reason I share that is that actually what we choose to say, there's science behind it. It genuinely affects how we behave. And if you're able to change dialogue, it affects your behaviour, it affects your thoughts, it affects your outcome. And that was probably in a moment for me within my life where I hadn't had anything any more challenging with regards to not being able to do anything and also feeling poorly. But I think it had a massive impact on the way I recovered. So that was one thing, like how we think affecting our actions. And the second thing would be a team, again, which I learned from my sporting days, is like having the best people around you. And there's times in life when you have loads and they all offer something and you give something to them, and there's times in life where, and this sounds really brutal and I don't mean it too, but you have to strip back and have the team that you need around you and that you're able to give to and you're able to receive back from. So for me, my husband was literally, I don't know how I would have got through those 3 or 4 years without him. My mum, my dad, a couple of my closest friends, and those at that point that I couldn't engage with as much, I had to almost let go, which is really hard. And always knowing that you can reconnect, and as you're going through different phases of life, you can have a team around you that looks and feels slightly different, and that can still be underpinned by kindness and connectivity, but it is just different. So I think my biggest learning from my head injury and from sport was being able to reset expectations, as I said, when things change, and having a group of people around me that I needed in that period of time to help me thrive, and therefore I would therefore be able to give that back in equal measures at some point.
That was amazing. And we actually joked this morning about in work, actually, Alex, my colleague, we were talking about like having those radiators. So I think it's all about finding those radiators in your life, whether it's socially or at work, so you get feed off that positive momentum, and those circles can be quite small when you need them to be. Obviously, you are an incredibly high achiever and performer. So from a performance perspective, obviously head injury aside, you know, how have you taken some of your learnings from kind of that high performance mindset into... Oh, sorry. Oh,
that's better.
Sorry, hopefully you guys have heard some of this amazing... can everyone hear now? Yeah. Brilliant, okay. I suppose that performance mindset you had in a really, really intense team environment, How do you think you've taken that forward now into your, and I should say, obviously, Alex has got an incredible career now, and she's actually, as you said, 3 girls under 6 or something?
Yeah, 2-year-old, 3-year-old and 4-year-old.
Yeah, so she's a superwoman already. She's also president of England Hockey, if I get that right. She's on the Athletes Commission of the BOA and has various different leadership ambassador roles with the likes of Vitality, Field Commentary, things with BBC. So I suppose, how have you taken your performance mindset from that team environment and applied that in your many roles? Oh, sorry, I should also mention she has a family business in the New Forest. So I suppose, how do you take those performance mindset principles and how are you juggling all those different roles in your life now?
Really good question. And again, if I think of an analogy back to my sporting career, it's you can't be all things to all people all of the time, or all things to all areas of your life. And I know the analogy of having hats for me, as you say, Vicky, my priority is always my children and trying to spend as much time with them. But I have roles and responsibilities where I need to be able to apportion time and also give value and feel value. And something that became really apparent to me when we were in the build-up actually to the Rio Olympic Games was when you go into a tournament scenario, we play 8 games in 13 days. Like, that feels like a lot. If you just relate that to our day-to-day lives, like, you've got so many things going on in life in such short period of time. Like, how do you prioritize and how do you focus on the right things at the right time? And what we did in the build-up to Rio was, like, preparation for me is always key, so just making sure I've got the foundations of what I need for whichever job it is. But then we used to talk about, when we had those games, it's one game at a time. And in the moment or in the day, it's performing. And so for me, that might now be something with Vitality, something on the farm, something with my children, and being present and being able to do that job. And then at the end of the day, and I know this is talked about a lot, but reviewing and reflection is so vital, which is why days like this are so good, because how rare is it that you actually spend some time being able to sit in a room, reflect and listen and have conversations. So at the end of the day, I'll reflect on what I've done, and if I'm in a busy period in my life, it's about surviving. We all know how to survive, right? So it's, okay, what's useful from today and what do I need to leave behind? And sometimes we can get so caught up in so many things to do that we're not able to give the time and direction to the one thing. So as I said, in Rio, it was, we'd play a game, we'd look at it, we'd leave what wasn't going to be helpful for tomorrow, and we'd just concentrate on what that was. And I think now, with multiple hats on, it's exactly the same mindset of being able to just recognise, okay, this is the phase I'm in, this is the area I need to prioritise, and being comfortable to do that with the team of people around you. And also accepting that you don't always get it right. Like, there's definitely times in my career, post-career, where I spent too much time in one thing, but actually if you're able to give time to yourself and just step back and have a look on that, recognise and do something different, it has an enormous impact on your overall productivity.
Amazing. I'd love, if you can, I'm not sure if my mic's working, but hopefully everyone can hear me. I'd love for you to share as well, and we talked a lot about community today, and this being an incredible one as it is, and obviously hockey has been for me and has been for you. How important do you think that's using sport in a kind of team environment or as part of community is for people, for yourself? Obviously, I know you said your multiple hats might not be playing hockey every day now, but, and also I suppose, like, how are you sharing that with your kids and ultimately kind of influencing them, what their decisions are around sport and sense of community in a team?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you've seen there's been some research from the DCMS around activity for women and physical activity, and actually there's some terrifying declines for women because there are so many more challenges for us to be engaged in sport and stay in sport. And I think there's two things. I think environments where it is easy for us to participate, sports and team sports for me are they're the pinnacle for me, because it enables us to connect as individuals. It allows us to physically move, to physically use our bodies, but actually it's the in-between times. It's the half time when you have a conversation. It's when you finish the game and you have a quick conversation about something at work or at home. They are the connecting pieces that I think are so important, but it's so hard to fit those into our daily lives. And we've done a lot of work in this campaign of reframing how we view exercise and view sport. We still view it as a luxury. It's the first thing to go within our lives because we're potentially, maybe we have families, we have jobs, we have houses to run. It's like going to exercise seems like it is something for you which you don't want to do. And what I do very, very deliberately in our household, and so does my husband, is we try and prioritise, and it's often a bit of a challenge. It's my turn, no, it's your turn, no, it's definitely my turn. But it's making sure our children see us stay fit, and I've now like reframed exercise as an opportunity to keep my body healthy, to live longer for my children, or to be able to do more on this planet. And I think actually reframing that within our household, so my kids grow up, and like my 3-year-old is like, look mummy, I'm exercising my heart, and that like language and those things I think are so important to move this dialogue of it being a luxury and something that as you move through life it becomes harder and harder to do, which it does, and more of a luxury to stay engaged with. It's changing why we do it, who we're doing it for, and the reasons behind it.
I love that. I love that quote from your daughter as well. I actually really, I think we should probably open the floor to questions, and I'm sure there will be some, and just wave at me, Sarah, if I need to stop for time. I would actually love you just to recall, we've talked about like the overcoming challenges post Rio and post your career, but can you recall a moment, you talked about the World Cup you didn't do as well, like those moments as a team where like you didn't do what you wanted, and how you as a captain, as a player, overcame them. And then I'd love obviously to share kind of genuinely what it felt like in Rio that time, because I think it gives me goosebumps even thinking about it. So people would love to hear that.
Yeah, I think I've got one story specifically I'll share, and it is actually around the World Cup. It was just 2 years before the Rio Olympic Games, where we obviously had great success. We went to a World Cup in Holland, and there was 12 teams competing, and we genuinely went there as 16 women representing 31 to win. We believed we could win. We believed that was whereabouts we were. And I'll get to the end of that story very quickly, because we came 11th. You know, don't laugh. No, I'm not over it, I'm shaking. We came 11th out of 12, and you know, we were just so utterly devastated. To paint a picture, you know, every metaphorical wheel on our bus fell off. There was lots of, you know, conflict within our team, and people always ask, well, how did you come back from that a year and a half to win? And actually what we did was really simple, and it's something that I definitely apply in my life now, and I think can be used in sport, in industry, in social groups, in family households. We went back to our training base in Bisham Abbey, and we had this really small pitside cabin, which is where all our meetings happened. And our coach said to us, I'm going to introduce a new member of staff. And I remember thinking, amazing, it's going to be some, you know, technical wizard that's going to help us score goals, because that is what we needed. And then this lady came up to the front, and she just said, hello, my name is Dr. Andrea First, and I'm your new sports psychologist. And I just remember going, no, like, this is like just so not what we need. And, you know, I'm really ashamed, but I was so wrong. She was absolutely incredible, and she did some pieces of work with us, and one was to change our vision. You know, visions are really important in life. You can have one as an individual, in an organisation, in a sports environment, but it has to be something that you can attach yourself to, that you can believe in, that you can add to. And our vision before we'd been to that tournament was gold. It was to win. But actually, as a team of 31 women, only 16 women get to go to a tournament, so 15 women can't attach themselves to that vision. So we came up with a new one, and it was to be the difference, to create history, and to aspire the future. And be the difference was simple. It was like, what could I do for the good of the team every day to be different, to make us win, to help us and support us? Create history, don't get me wrong, we still wanted to win in Rio, but it was bigger than that. It was about being the first British women's team ever to do that. And then the last one, inspire the future. As I said, we were 31 women. When we were at school, you couldn't be a full-time anything as a female. So actually, that was about making sure young girls, young boys, people would look into our team and they'd think, yeah, that's what I want to do. They'd be inspired by what we did and hopefully follow in a similar trajectory. But she also, Andrea went on to say, look, a vision is great, but a vision is nothing if it's not underpinned by values or behaviours, things that are really tangible. And so we came up with this that we live by every day, and it was, we are one team, we are winners, and be alive. Now, don't get me wrong, we wanted to be alive by Rio, that wasn't literal, but it was it was about being present, about being a contributing member of a team. How many teams have you been in and it's the same person that answers a question, or the same people that volunteer or take on different parts of jobs and roles? And actually being alive was responding to emails on time, being, at meetings sat down on time. If in our environment you were on time for a meeting, you were 5 minutes late and the door was already closed. That breeds respect and a culture of togetherness and tightness. We are winners. Now, this is probably one of my things I hate the most. You'll tune into a big event and somebody will win and the commentator will be like, they're a born winner. Just to clarify, I've recently had 3 kids. Not one of them was born and I thought, oh, look, they look like a winner. Nobody is born a winner. It's characteristics, it's skills that you learn, it's the people you surround yourself with, it's the attributes that you live by day in, day out. So we had a session that we designed every single week on Thursday, and it was called Find Your Way to Win. I'd never invite anybody to come and watch it because it looked like we hated each other. But the coaches stepped back, we were put into small teams, and we had to coach ourselves, come up with our tactics ourselves, and the sole outcome, not development, the sole outcome was to win. And so within that environment, it was competitive, it was hard, it was tough. We shouted and screamed at one another. We learned how to give feedback, take feedback, but we did it in a design session every week. And so it allowed us to develop from a program where it had been just about winning to something that every single individual could attach themselves to, whether they were there at the Olympic final receiving their gold medal or the heartbreak of watching it, yet they still felt connected. So I think for me, the work that Andrea did, and also as people, and I know, sorry, I'm talking way too much, but one other piece of work that Andrea did to us that was so valuable was, after we'd done some of the work on our visions and our values, and most importantly our behaviours that underpin that, she put us in a circle, and I could ask you to do this now, but I think it'd be too mean, so I won't. She just picked on one of us and she said, come up to the front. And she just said to us, right, can you please tell the group what your super strengths are? And, I can remember it so clearly. My teammate came up to the front and she just kind of awkwardly played with her trousers and leg and just got a bit hot and was like shuffling around. And, I'm ashamed to say, out of 31 women, we found it culturally so hard to stand up and know it ourselves, but say to our colleagues, this is my strength and this is what I'm good at. And I'm not sure whether it's a gender, a culture, I don't know what it is, but actually Andrea told us, let's switch our mindset. Rather than being a team that is always looking at, okay, I need to be better at this. Sure as damn it, if I asked you to come up and say, give me 3 things to improve on, you could probably all do it. We're really good at being our own worst critics, but how good are we at saying, this is my superpower, this is my super strength, and this is what I offer to the team? And actually what we did over a period of time was start to leverage on our strengths. And imagine a room full of women that know what they are good at. But not only do they know what they're good at, I know what everybody else in the room strengths are. So when it comes to an Olympic final, when it comes to 3 days before and something's happened, you know where to go, you know where the support is. And collectively, as an outcome, you are so much better. And I think those nuggets that Andrea gave us were the difference between us going to Rio and being another team, and going to Rio with this steely determination for sure, but being very designed and very deliberate about what we'd done to then have success when we were there.
It's amazing. I love it all, and it's I actually heard one of your contemporaries say a similar story, and she also recalled Kate about how brutal those sessions were. She said people were leaving the room, they were in floods of tears. It was a really, really tough thing to go through, but like you say, it was the difference. And I think the other thing I always learn from in sport is the body language. So you standing up there and saying those positive things about what your superpower is, what your team is also you believe it. So when you walk onto the pitch, it's body language in sport is everything. And I'll always remember the kind of, you believe that you guys are going to win till the bitter end, and it went to the bitter end, and your body language and all of that work, you totally believed it. And I think that's incredibly important in everything we do, just not from on the pitch, but when you stand up and present in a scary environment at work, I think body language and belief is huge.
Yeah, I think, and just to add to that, I think it's belief and design. So if I take us back to our Rio final and we went to shuffles and it was 3-3, if anyone watched that game, like the Dutch were all over us. We were backed up against a brick wall. We had 3 shots and somehow they all went in, but we were still there. And it came to the whistle went, and the best psychology experiment would be to go and look at that and dissect it, because when the whistle went, the GB women's team, we ran into one another. The Dutch were in disbelief and were like strolling around in 1s and 2s. We ran into one another. We'd already designed what the coach would say to us. We already knew the pool of 8 players he would pick from, and we'd had discussions about how he was going to tell those individuals which one was going to take that penalty shuffle on the day of an Olympic final to win an Olympic gold medal. So when that had happened, we'd already discussed where the team would then go and stand and the 5 would move away to. As that 5, we discussed the order, but we discussed what we would say to a player if they scored or if they didn't. So there was no surprises. It was trying to remove, in a scenario that seems impossible to remove the pressure and the emotion, actually, when things are so important, you can design ways to eliminate as much of that as possible. Conversely, if you looked at the Dutch, they had no idea who was taking one, they weren't prepared, they didn't know how to stand. So I think when you say belief, our belief came from our design and our care and the amount of time and conversations, difficult, vulnerable, hard, horrible conversations that we were willing to have. And I think the last, if I may, one thing that I've probably learned more than anything within my sporting career that has set me up for sure within businesses, within some roles that I have now, is never ever assume the conversation's been had. Like, never assume. Assumption is the root of all evil. Like, we're too complex as humans. There's too many emotions and there's too many things in life. And what we did within our environment, if something felt uncomfortable, then go and have the conversation. And actually, the harder the conversation, the more connected you and I become. Like, the harder conversation, the more I know about you and the more I value you and care for you. And as difficult as they are, I don't think I've ever left a conversation and not gained something from it. And if you have to revisit it, then that was fine. We'd revisit it 7 times until we got to the point where we went to. And that's helped me enormously in my life, even in a family context with my husband. Hey, I love him. Sometimes I want to kill him. But it's always better to have the conversation. And I think that I got from that group and that team and that psychologist at our helm.
That's such an incredible insight and amazing story. So I'm going to probably stop our conversation there and open it to anyone else in the room that'd like to ask Alex any question. If no one does, then I just want you to share how it felt. Or you could share that first.
Maybe anyone that just videoed me saying I want to kill my husband, maybe delete that bit. How did it feel? Oh, it's really hard. Like, I almost feel like a fraud now because I feel like it was so long ago. It feels to me now like almost a different stage in my life. For as long as I can remember, sport was in my blood. It was something I wanted to do. I'd be lying if I said as a 12-year-old that's all I wanted to achieve. I didn't, because there was no Olympics for me to look up to. There was no female role models for me to look up to. So I think when I got to 23, and as a group of 22 women at the time, we'd campaigned for a full-time programme. For me, that was one of the proudest parts of my career, the first time we became full-time athletes. When I got to age 30 and I had the email letter through for my 3rd Olympic Games at Rio, it was like, I think we can actually do something special at these games. When we went to Rio and we played our first game and we started with a victorious win, 2-1 against Australia. They were ranked number 2, we were ranked number 7th. No one believed in us. But we were so tight and we had designed how we were going to behave in and around the village, linked to our values, in and around the field. We knew our roles inside and out. We celebrated them equally, whether we were the goal scorer or the person that just had to mark their player. They were valued equally within our squad. So when it came to that moment and Holly Perm-Webb, cool as a cucumber, and we'd seen her do it 1,000 times, she turned, she stepped, and she put the ball round the keeper into the back of the net. There's this wonderful photo. And I always laugh because I'm not sure if it's like utter elation or complete shock that we've won. And I think the reason I love it now, as I said, as a mum, which I feel like the most blessed in the world, that I am now mum and I have different roles. I look back and it makes me parent different because we were never supposed to win. we were never supposed to win an Olympic gold medal. I was never supposed to do that. And it tells me now when I want to achieve something that there's a way I can design it, there's a way I can give everything to it, and it might take me not very long, it might take forever. It took me 22 years to get to that point where we won. I didn't win much else, that was kind of it. But we were able to achieve it as a group of people. So I think for me that moment was just this disbelief, this awe, this like new release sense of it can be done. And actually when we put our minds to something in life, the pursuit of it is almost better than the final point. Whether you get to the final point or whether you don't, only you can try and predict that outcome.
Amazing, thank you. I think there was a question. Yeah, go for it.
Hi Alex, you're a bit of a hero in our family because we're all right mid, we all play well. And when I was younger, I know you relate to this, I was really goal orientated, and I became a British 1500 metre champion, I went to the World Championships in triathlon, but now I'm a mum, I really struggle with that guilt of being goal orientated. I've just come back from England hockey trials in the 50s, but I carry that guilt with me, that whole day out to go to Birmingham, to go to trials. I'm running a business, I've got social enterprises going, I work with schools and colleges, and I think, how do I then achieve my goals when actually a lot of the discipline I relied upon when I was younger and had fewer responsibilities and no guilt, it was easy. I could get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, do my training. I didn't have that responsibility for everyone else. So now I'm 50, I think, oh Mitch, give up on your goals because you've got all this other stuff which I get a lot of fulfillment out of as well. So I find myself missing training sessions and feeling that guilt. So I know because you've made that shift as well.
First of all, never give up on your goals. Like, never give up on your goals because they are who make you tick. And the first thing is, I hear you, I relate to you. Like, I think I always never really got mum guilt. I was like, yeah, whatever, what is guilt? Like, and then I really get it. You know, like, I feel guilty if I'm in the office, I feel guilty I'm not with the kids. If I'm with the kids, I feel guilty I'm not in the office helping my husband or doing my own bits. It is that constant juggle, but actually we did a really good piece of work and it just put you in the centre of it. And I know that is really hard. But put you in the centre of your picture and literally like go back and do it, and then like draw out what the bits that make you you, and that's your family, that's your home, that's your work, that's your sport, that's your ambition. If you take away your ambition or your goals, you're taking away a massive part of the character you are and all of the things that your children will get because you're that person. Whether it's taking them to extra things, whether it's whatever it may be. But I think that is the hardest challenge, I think, as a female, is always feeling like there's a trade-off to everything, and there doesn't have to be. And I think the moment you stop doing the bits that make you you is the moment that you can't give what you need to everybody else. And the last thing I'd say is, like, for me in parenting, there is so much that's in my control and there is so much that's out of my control. And I always talk around like soft influencing, or I think in my head around, okay, how can I influence my children? And your children are watching you go off to things and achieving. They're watching you run your businesses. They're watching, and that's how I think with the kids. Like, how do I frame that? Okay, I'm away from you, but mummy's looking after her body, so I'm around longer for you. So if you can I try and reframe things in my mind and influence my children in terms of all the positives in life and having a balance, and I think they make me a better mum, a better business owner, a better leader, whatever it may be.
Thank you. Hi. You seem like an incredibly disciplined person, and I'm just intrigued as to how you change the emphasis on discipline from how you run your team where everyone's incredibly ambitious and getting towards the same goal, and then how you maybe alter that a little bit within your business, because a business is made up of lots of different people who may not all be as ambitious as one another, but they're all crucial cogs within that team. So how do you take that discipline and use it in a business scenario?
That is such a good question, and I'm going to share one of the businesses I'm in because I think it will highlight some of their challenges. So I'm in hospitality, and in the hospitality industry you have really highly wonderful, amazingly motivated people, and you also have quite a lot of changeover, and you have a lot of change in teams all the time, and I find that really challenging. So if I use that business specifically for that example, where I possibly can, I try and empower people and give them responsibility. And that is really scary, and that's something I really struggle with initially. When you say about discipline, you've hit me literally nail on the head. I like to be in, my husband calls me a control freak, so I'm laughing, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I like to be in control of everything and know how everything's working. But actually, that is just not possible. It's not possible to do a good job, and I'm also doing a disservice to those people. And I'm also, I'm making somebody that is not as engaged even less engaged by doing too much. So I'd say my biggest piece of advice would be always meet as a team. So we meet as a team regularly throughout the week, and try and empower others to feel like they're invested in your piece of work, in your business, in your sporting team. And then value is the next part. Like, humans, is one of our, I think, greatest needs is to feel valued in whatever area of life it is. If it's in a friendship, you want to feel valued. If it's in an office space, you want to feel valued. If you're in a family, you want to feel like you have value and add something to that. And having a fundamental belief that anyone in your team adds that, and then making sure they feel it, helps enormously in terms of that team feeling of togetherness, and then overall your productivity.
I'm getting signals from Sarah, so I think unless someone's got a burning question, I just... Oh, good.
Where do you keep your gold medal? And do you have to wear it?
Oh, she did bring it.
This is really embarrassing because then you're going to see where it's kept. Yeah, exactly. It does normally. I had to actually find this morning. But this is. So I think there is actually a horrendously high stat. I think it's something like 82% of medalists keep them in their underwear drawer, and that's where mine is, in its sock. So it's not kept anywhere in particular. It doesn't come out that often these days. And as I said, it's incredibly precious to me, but not because of. Yeah, it's funny. I thought if I ever won something, I'd probably wear it everywhere and never let it go. But it really, truly is like what we did in the pursuit of it is what makes it so special, and the connections and the people that we did it with and how we did it. For me, that's what makes that as special as it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure everyone here has been incredibly inspired by not only what you've done before, but sharing your story with us today. And it's so lovely to see you.
It's so lovely. Thank you.